say dated every day that we say our feelings that aren't feelings, right? I feel unappreciated. I feel manipulated. I feel, or you make me feel this, and it's just part of our regular language, and it's hard to like switch it over, being like, wait, I don't feel unappreciated. How do I actually feel? Like annoyed, tired, angry. What is it? And especially like one of my children is a huge challenge, and so it's just like if I go in trying to do this, like the control, it just escalates, and we never get to an end, right? Like ever. So
never.
It's just very interesting, and it's hard to do nonviolent communications because it's so natural to do it the other way, or to be like, it's so natural to want to blame somebody for your feelings when they're not good.
Yeah, you're right, because we don't go around like, Meredith, you made me happy. You know, like we wouldn't get into blame and accusations over like the nice and pleasurable emotions, but we sure as heck want to offload for the more negative or uncomfortable emotion.
I actually try to do that when I have a pleasant experience with someone. I try to give them the feedback that I appreciate the way that this went down because it made me feel really validated or acknowledged or whatever. Because of that whole thing, it's rooted in like, you know, usually you recognize it with that bad boss, right? That one that only points out when you're not doing it right, and then you don't get any credit for when you're doing something well. So from that, I've applied it to everybody, to Leah's point, because it's an excellent tool for manipulation.
I think it also depends on I was bullied extremely as a kid, and I learned at a young age that if you never attack somebody about their person, you always say, you know, about you're talking specifically about behavior, because I think being bullied and being called names all the time, you know, I knew right away how horrible that was to be called something that, you know, like you idiot or whatever. They didn't use idiot, but like something like that, where you're like, well, that's, you know, if you said like that was not very, I don't know, thoughtful, logical or whatever, like to call somebody a name it's just never going to accomplish something. So to blame somebody for your feelings, or I don't know, I just never did that, like, because I knew what it was like to be on the other side. I don't know.
Well, like, oh God, the bullying years. Oh God.
I think that calling someone a name does accomplish something, but it accomplishes something in an ineffective way, because it depends on your goal, right? So if your goal is actually to resolve the conflict or to come to a resolution about whatever's going on, then you would want to avoid name calling. What it does is it creates, if you have a path to your solution, like name calling makes a path to like, now we're going to see who can make like the other person feel worse. So it's just like a divergent. But what it is accomplishing is an expression of your feelings, just in a really poor way. It's an ineffective way to communicate your feelings, because what you're saying when you're attacking someone is, I'm hurt or I'm upset or whatever, right? And they can't hear, oh, I'm hurt, I'm upset. They hear, or they feel pain because you've personally attacked them, and then they want to respond and up that ante and be like, well, now I'm hurt and this is how big my pain is, so you're fat or whatever, right? Like, just to comment on the fact, like, it has a purpose, but that purpose is not the most effective way to meet that need.
Yes, it's such a fascinating book so far, because violence does make me think of anger, which makes me think of anger typically is a secondary emotion. Usually it tries to mask fear, right? So like, no wonder why when we speak out in rage, we're saying the most hurtful things, because we're trying to protect probably the most vulnerable parts of ourselves.
You know, armchair expert, I know Leah loves anyway.
Yeah, it's like the best.
Dax is constantly talking about AA and his steps and whatever. And he said that I think it's maybe step 4, but don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on anything, because I never had the facts. But he says that there's a step where you, I guess you list off everybody, maybe it's resentments. You list off everybody that's ever upset you, whatever. And through this work, you eventually boil down to like basically what has caused these feelings in you, kind of, concentrate down to 3 major fears when you're feeling angry, right? When you're responding to someone and you feel like you're like, like, you know, like that whole HPA is set off and everything. he says more often than not, one of his 3 main fears have been triggered. So that's kind of cool too, right? Like when you say that anger is covering up fear, that's what that made me think about.
Yeah.
Anger is easiest to show, right?
Isn't
So
it?
that's why it's the go-to, where, because what you're saying is true, Kara, that usually the actual emotion behind it is a very exposed nerve, right? It's a very vulnerable, and so fear makes sense, right?
Book interrupted.
My interruption is ice cream. Do you guys remember Neapolitan ice cream? I forgot about it and got it. And as you can see, that's coffee. It's 10 a.m. Wait, maybe it's 11 a.m. That's no excuse. I can't stop. I'm out of control.
Book interrupted.
This book is about mindfulness, like being mindful about your needs and your feelings and other people's needs and feelings, which is hard, but like understanding that somebody else's need, they have the same needs, but they're fulfilled different ways. And so, especially if you're talking to somebody who had a different upbringing, this is kind of important. But
how do you get to know what, like, for instance, Kara, I'm just gonna lay you right out, girl.
We can always edit it out later.
Yeah. Like, how would I know? It doesn't pertain to you because we don't really have, well, I mean, we do, maybe. We don't really fight, I don't think.
I don't think we do.
That I can remember. But, like, how would I know what the fuck your needs are, dude? Like, this is a sticking point in my marriage. It's like, how would I know? You don't, I find as a over communicator, how the fuck would I know what your needs are? You guys, it's isolating. It keeps.
Oh yeah. Oh no, he has a response. If we were to take you and B as an example, it's not just about you doing.
Like, I never know what your needs are. I have to like
pry it out of you. No, you're right. Yeah, so in a way, we're asking a lot of those close to us, but it is a two-way street. Like, you can't take on all of the responsibility. I would probably say what would likely help a relationship is building of trust. And building of trust happens for different people in different ways. And one of the best ways to do it is you become a student of the other person. Does it make it more challenging for your type of personality with B's type or my type, where we can be almost secretive, withholding? It's very unintentional.
To someone like me who shares like literally there isn't a secret. I just don't have them because I don't know. I have like a no shame response or something. but well, yeah, so it feels very isolating. That it's like a good, it's weird because I envy the quality of being a silent processor, because it's seems like a peaceful way to live, and then especially like Sarah was talking about, like she actually is working through it, so it sounds like ideal, but it's a good quality, but it's also, I find it very isolating being around people. Like,
I think it's intentionally isolating. I think when I don't bring consciousness to it, it is a coping mechanism that fits in with a pre-existing narrative, which is people are happier without me. I just fuck things up. It's safer if I stay back and don't reveal all of me, because all of me is bad or defective in some way, right?
Like or somehow a hassle.
So then, yeah, exactly. A total hassle. Or if I express my needs, or if I am authentically who I am, then I absolutely wouldn't be included. So it's not coming from a healthy place. Does it make it more work for people like you who have a willingness to want to get to know the inside? You betcha. Is it going to be fucking easy? Fuck no. It would be like probably long and hard, but the other person, so B and myself, we have a huge responsibility as well.
That's
you can't care, but that's your nature too, Leah. You'll just want to take care of, make sure, everything's okay. So you have to be careful for reciprocity.
Maybe it's a good thing you're isolating yourself, because I'll just be like, let's sew our skin together.
I think that just because I have, because my partner is actually really good dealing with my isolating, not really knowing what's going on. But that's the thing. I think the key is to find see what his things are, like his triggers are, like his behaviors that clearly means something's happening. But then my husband doesn't pry and let's talk about it, whatever. He just says like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know, this thing's not working. He's like, no. What's going on? This has been a couple days now. Like, you need to figure out what's going on. Like, you're upset about something. And then he leaves. That's it. He made his statement and then he's gone. And then I spent like literally the rest of the night or the next couple of days being like, what is going on? I am kind of, and then the next time I have a little trigger, I don't think, oh, I'm so angry at this plant or I'm so angry at whatever. I think, oh, something really is going on. And then I have to sit with it. And he's never mentioned it again. He mentioned it once. And then now I'm like,
oh no.
Like,
well, I don't know.
Until I figure it out. And then I'm like, oh, and then I go to him. I'm like, I figured out what it is. And even that conversation could be hours, it could be days before I say, I figured it out.
But can we do that as your friends? Like as your friends and your sister, like how would you like us to approach when you're like that?
No, Kim's done it to me before, being like, what's happening? And I'm like, what? And she's like, something's going on. What's happening? Tell me.
Yeah, I'm like, you're not telling me something.
Spill it. And I start bawling my eyes out. I'm like, maybe it's this. And she's like, oh.
And I'm like, finally, now we can figure it out.
But it has to be like in a situation where it's calm and just like something clear is going on. Like something's happening that you're not saying. And they'll be like, no, nothing, fine.
Yeah,
whatever.
there's a strong denial.
No, there's something.
There's a strong denial. She will, and like angrily, like it'll be obviously, like I'm thinking about, I won't reveal anything, but that tarot card reading.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like, obviously there is a harsh like shield of armor being placed down where I'm like, I think that something whatever, and she's like, no, and I'm like, but this is the reasons why I think that no, and like
and your reaction is like telling you yes.
And like everything that you're doing, everything else is saying yes except for that word no. Like,
but then do you push? Like, because I would be like, I do, fine, I'll talk to you later.
Push because of our relationship. Like if it was a brand new person, I might still be as confident in my assessment, but not knowing them yet, I wouldn't push. But with Sarah, I would push. And if she was like straight blanket denial, then I wouldn't bother because there's no point, right? Because she's not ready to acknowledge or own or feel or whatever it is that's holding up the shield. But in that particular situation, the tarot cards were very helpful because they just continued being like, can't deny every single card pointing this way, every single card.
Sarah.
I know, like by that, I think it was like the fourth or fifth card. You're like,
she lost it.
Sure.
She finally was like,
but that's the thing. Like, I think because I was in denial, so when I can't see anything. Like I've pushed it down so hard. It's just saying, I think something's happening. Just putting the seed in my brain for me to be like, oh, something might be happening. Okay, now
it takes a digestion. Because she's not responsive to the forcing. I'm just more forcey. I think I'm pretty good at reading people, like how they're feel, like because we communicate in all sorts of ways, like Mary was saying a little while ago, right? Like not just like, oh, I feel, and we're saying feelings that aren't feelings or whatever, but also like passive aggressively all day long people are telling me what is actually going on with them. And so I feel like I have an awareness of it, right? And this is another thing too, is that sometimes when you come from trauma, some trauma reactions are being hyper aware of other people because you're trying to, it's a self-preservation thing, because maybe you came from a situation where shit goes down. So it behooves you to be very hyper aware, to be 3 steps ahead of when is this shit like, so I feel like, and this again goes back to with Dax, he calls it his spidey sense, but there was a psychologist on that called him out and was like, that's actually like, that's not cool. That's trauma. But he's like, no, I'm good with it. Right. Whatever. And I feel like I relate to that in some way. And I feel like that's maybe a source of where, because I can't explain it in even right now, as you can hear me, I can't explain it in such a eloquent way that it makes sense. It's all feeling, but I do feel where other people are. And I think that it's fairly accurate, like most of the time. And so I become frustrated when other people don't even realize where they're at. And I just want to be like, mirrors, look at yourself, look at your, like, here's the evidence, like whatever. And so people don't respond well to that. Surprisingly.
No.
Are you
But
sure?
that's why I get, like, you know what I mean? Like, I have to consciously like try to pump my own brakes because some people are not ready yet.
That's the most frustrating when you're like,
Oh.
did that bother you? No, it didn't bother me. And you're like, are you sure? Because I'm okay. If it did, just tell me because I'll never do it again.
Yeah. Because you kind of smell like a toxic individual who's passively aggressively dropping these
That's one of my
bombs.
least favorite things too.
You know what that reminds me of? I went to this healer once with another girlfriend, and it completely relates to me and the way I am when I get upset. And I'm sure Kara's the same way. They're like, when you get upset, it's like you're slowly releasing a poison and slowly poisoning everyone around you, slowly. And and then they said this other friend, they're like, and you're like poison dart. Instantly they're done. And but it made me think that, and I've had that in the past for me, and that's what it is, right? Like what Mayor's saying, when you say something to someone and someone like me is like, no, everything's fine. It's because it's like slowly poisoning until we're like, oh no, yep. Sorry, everyone.
I've now killed everyone.
Sorry
reminds
about
me-
that.
That reminds
And
me
all
of how
the
I
dark
process
people are
feelings
losing
too.
it all of a sudden, right? Like,
Yeah.
then they're like blowing up.
Yeah, and then the dark people are like trying to kill everyone.
Poisoning me for a month.
The way that you're talking about that poison dart, I feel like it would be in line with how long it takes you to figure out how you're actually feeling too. But now, I need to self-reflect because something's going on. He saw it, and okay, I haven't owned it yet, right? So that seeping poison, if you didn't get interrupted with a hey, it would seep, right? And I don't know where I got the information, the mistaken information that I needed to know how I felt immediately. Maybe it was from who I was communicating with, because a lot of times, like in unhealthy relationships, a lot of partners will demand like immediate responses. And then that is also chaotic. Like that is a stress response too, when someone's demanding that you deal with them. I don't know how I feel, right? And so what happens with me now with my partner is I'll be like, I have feelings and I don't know what they are yet. So I need to sit with them. I need to feel them. I need to figure out like where they trace back to. And then I'll be able to communicate with you about like where I'm at. And I feel when I've felt my feelings. But for some reason, there's like this unwritten rule, which is a false rule, that you don't have the time to do that. And you should take the time to do that.
That
Totally.
is a good point. That's so true. Because I always know how I feel instantaneously. Like I need no time to process. But it's true. There's no rule. Like I'm always doing that to B. I'm always doing that to my husband. Trying to like, well, what do you think about that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like he literally hasn't felt a feeling in like 30 plus years. He of course doesn't know how he feels about it, and he's scared
because it's
because now darts are coming.
and, like wild and doing dishes and like, well, I'm upset and like crazy person. And like I feel it's true. Like that's true. There's no timer to being connected to your feelings. It just happens really instantaneously for me.
With some people in my life that I know take a long time, I'll say, I've been thinking about this. I want to talk to you about this. Don't say anything right now. Think about it. And then we'll talk about it later.
I mean, they used to teach that you should never go to bed angry. And I think Laird taught me that. Sometimes you do have to go to bed. If you're feeling emotions, I'm not like Leah. I don't necessarily feel my emotions right away. I often need to sleep on it, or I'm also not great with change, weirdly, considering I've traveled, done all this stuff. Like I need time to process. So I always prefer if people say to me this and whatever, like that's why I want people to be honest. So I have time to process and then come back to whatever the problem is or the issue is.
If you've enjoyed these video highlights, listen to the full episode on our YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. Remember to like and subscribe and ring that bell to be notified when new episodes are published. Find out more by going to www.bookinterrupted.com.
On Book Interrupted.